We're going to begin here today. As you know, we're in the midst of a Bible study called In the Beginning is what it's called. Men, Women, and Marriage, that God's design for life together is from Genesis chapter 1. And as we live according to His design, we live under His blessings. As we decide to do this our way, well, everything just kind of falls apart. You could almost literally say goes to hell. Today we have, as we've talked a little bit about roles in marriage, we're actually going to get to what I would suggest is the most common way that love is shared in a marriage. The most common way, just like literally by volume, is what I would suggest. And the most common way that you share love or don't share love in a marriage is through something called, any guesses here? Yes, Angela? Communication. All right. Because have you ever noticed, I don't know, that you talk to your spouse? Maybe. No one's noticed this. All right. No. Maybe by default, it's the person that's right there and you're talking to somebody. But we do. Now,
But we listen.
we do some listening too. That's good, Dennis. That's actually good. All right. We're going to get to listening is good.
It's part of communications.
Indeed it is. So for instance, I've seen this with, there's a marriage book I use for premarital counseling. This is actually part of that, some of the basics. But you can look at a lot of them. And so, for instance, the one I use, and this is fairly common, 12-chapter book. Of the 12-chapter book, of all the things you might want to talk about with marriage, how many of those chapters do you think were communication? 11? Gail goes with 11. You're going to be taking notes today. Don't draw an arrow pointing to Dan. That's not... He knows. No, how many do you think? We got 11, 9. 9. Yeah, Ruby goes with the 9. This is good. We're kind of like, I feel like I got an auction going in reverse. Actually, the one I have is 6. So half the book, and then, by the way, it's the first half of the book is communication. And one of the things I like about the book that I use is the book assumes that you have problems. It already makes the assumption you have problems. And it makes the assumption that you have problems because it also makes the assumption that one sinner married another sinner, and so there's a chance that somebody might sin. Does that sound about right? And typically, and in all honesty, again, a lot of times it's just proximity. The person you're probably going to sin against the most is, in fact, your spouse. I have more chances to say stupid things at home because, well, I'm there. That's how that works. And so then the person that and this is kind of the sad part, the person you love the most actually can be the person you end up sinning against the most. All right. On the other hand, the cool thing about communication is that when we have communication God's way, we take the problems and even, yes, the sins that we have, and if we communicate in a way that is God's way, we actually then can have a blessing come out of that where we handle the problems together and actually grow in our love, in our relationship with one another. And I would say a large part of that starts with communication God's way. You see, have you ever had a small issue just blow up? Like something that wasn't really a big deal, and next thing you know, it's like a huge deal. And a lot of times it's because we took that small problem and we communicated with one another in a sinful way. Other times, you could take a big problem, But if you're working together as a husband and wife and talking through it in a way that is God-pleasing, you could take the big problem and actually come out, what do you think?
With a small problem.
With a small problem, or even like, hey, we could do this together. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about today, and again, I would suggest one more thing on this, and maybe it's circling back to the beginning. The way that we most often share love, and I want you to remember this when we go through the Bible study, that we share love in how we talk, that even saying, how was your day today, is a way, that those simple words, how was your day today, that's actually, in listening, is actually a way of showing what? Of showing what? Love. Love. That's right, love. The circle. Yeah, those of you who are at early service. If you weren't at early church today, I had a children's message. And I asked the kids, what am I drawing in the air? And I did this. And they're like, a circle. And I'm like, no, it's not a circle. And I'm like trying to draw a heart. And then it wasn't, I didn't do it right. So I'm like, no, it's not a circle. Then they're like, it's Jesus. It's not Jesus. I tried. So I am not capable of air art. I will practice hearts in the air. I don't know. All right. So if you take a look at your Bible study page, in the beginning, men, women, and marriage, communication God's way for the next 2 weeks. I said there's 4 negative and also often sinful forms of communication, and they are escalation, invalidation, interpretation, and withdrawal. We're going to look at all 4 in the context of marriage, though they can't apply to communication with all relationships. All right, so this is something that can apply to all, but we're going to look at it within marriage, and then we'll look at then the opposite of these things. If those are negative, what are the positives? All right. So escalation. How would you define escalation in the context of communication? If you were to say you have escalation, how would you describe escalation in the context of communication? What is escalation?
Starts out small and gets really big.
It starts out small and then it gets really big. And how do things, quote, get really big? What does that mean? Something starts out small and gets really big. What does that mean? What is there going to be? What are you going to see? What are you going to hear?
It's by the words you say.
Yeah, by the words you say.
You respond.
Yeah, go farther, but what is escalation going to sound like, look like? Does it get louder? Gets louder. What else?
Sharper.
Nose, you can have nose in there. Yeah, sharper. Well, you're using nice words. Okay. Now, with this particular study, one of the things I did is I have these little role plays in here. And don't worry, I'm not just going to randomly call on you to role play. I asked for volunteers, so you're safe, Dan. But just as an example, my very kind wife, Rachel, actually volunteered to do escalation with me. And she's going to come up first here. I think there was she said something like, so I get to yell at you and it's okay? And like, yeah. All right, so just for a moment, we're going to be John and Tiffany here. And if you take a look at your page, I'm coming home from work and I trip over a toy truck at the front door is how things start. So just so you know, I'm already injured. So I've sprained, just so you know, more than likely I've sprained an ankle. So I'm already, so let's make sure you know that, I'm already.
We escalated it by just deciding we were going to have a sprained ankle.
I've already That's not pre-escalation. I don't know. All right, well, just know that I'm injured. All right. Tiffany, can't you ever get the kids to put away their toys?
Like I have nothing else to do. And like you're always cleaning up after yourself. Do you even want dinner?
Wait, that's totally not on the page. All right. That's okay. Yeah, I had quite the more, okay. Maybe this wasn't my best idea. All right. Oh, of course, this is my fault. I forget that you're always right and I'm always wrong.
Well, at least you got that part right.
Well, thanks for the support. You know, I don't even know why I stay with you. You're always tearing me down.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't stay with me. You wouldn't be tripping over the kids' toys everywhere else.
You're right again. Maybe I'll move out.
No dinner for you.
You know, for those of you in early service, this has not been my day. This has gone a little off the rails for me. All right, now.
Tell us about Texas.
They'll say, yeah. Oh, great! Now the Jacksons are leaving. All right. Oh, they escalate. I know they have to depart. All right, now, where did the escalation? Let's analyze this a little bit. Where did the escalation start? Where did it start? Here. No, put your hand down. You're not. Yeah. No, someone else. Yes. Oh, as soon as I walked in the door, all right, so I had a bad moment, and I start, and where's my voice at from the very start? I've already started up here. All right. Now, here's a question. Why did it start? Now, why did the escalation start? Why did it start? Okay, so it's already tough day. All right, so I was already maybe here. I was already maybe here before I got to here. And then that toy truck, yes.
I actually think for her, the escalation probably started before he even came home.
Yes.
Okay.
That it was the anticipation of things aren't ready, the house is a mess.
All right.
Not what I wanted him to come home to, but I know he's gonna.
So is it possible both people were already here? So if you don't mind, one of the things when our kids were younger, and I think I've shared this with the group, is I'd say, you know, how was your day? And I'd say, you know, how are the kids? This is when they're, you know, little. And your Rachel's phrase was, today was like getting pecked to death by a duck or multiple ducks. There wasn't like one bad thing that happened, but it was like all day, you know, yeah.
Well, and it always seemed to escalate between 4 and 5 p.m. when I was trying to get dinner on the table, and I knew we were coming home on a scheduled feed that last hour. I was like escalated before you even came in.
The kids would go full demon. And, yeah.
I'll say amen to that.
Yeah, Ruby says amen. Yeah, same deal. Yeah.
I think kids know that it's time, okay, Dad's coming home, she's getting dinner ready, we can do whatever we want.
Wow. It's open. So like the kids are sinners too, and they like, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. All right. So yeah.
But it's been proven that when you're hungry, you're more apt to get angry also.
I live that. Now that I relate to. I always think about that. Like, you know, don't go do pastoral work on an empty stomach. Someone's going to get the law. Should get the gospel. All right, now, so we got a little bit of the why. All right, that's there. All right, so both people. Now, the thing is though, when you're here, when you're already here, do you have? Are you thinking about other people? Let's put it like that. No, you're kind of wrapped up in your self. And so all this then is going to tie together, of course, with our sinful nature. Because our sinful nature is always about what? It's always about me. It's always about me. All right? I'm not thinking about others. I'm thinking about me. All right? And usually the more irritated we get, the more me kind of grows. All right? So then, what happened after one person started escalating? What happened?
They both escalated.
Yeah, when one person escalates, what does very often the other person do? Yeah, you get louder and you get even more escalation is what you have. In other words, the escalation builds one person to another. I mean, if somebody yells at you, do you have a response? Even if you can't be heard, do you feel it? All right? You've got this in here. Now, this conversation may seem crazy in the sense that we literally went from tripping on a toy truck to moving out in about 30 seconds. That might seem crazy. But do conversations like this actually happen? Yeah. That things can escalate. Man, it's like a forest fire, to use the illustration from the book of James. You got this going on here like this. And then I just asked the question, have you ever been part of conversations like these? It doesn't necessarily need to be within marriage. It can happen in any relationship. And I said, how do you feel when they're done and what's the aftermath? So if you've ever been in a conversation like this, when they're done, how do you typically feel? What does that do? Horrible. You feel horrible?
Guilty.
You might feel guilty.
Angry.
Angry, still might be angry. Yeah, it might be, boy, that other person is terrible. What else? Does anyone feel good after these things? Usually these things happen and actually, so whatever was the problem going on, that you're already here, instead of love taking place, it's just the opposite. Because remember, what does, and I've used this a whole bunch of times, what does sin always do? It always does something. You've seen me do this. I take a piece of paper and I just rip it in half. Sin always tears apart, always. People from people and people from God. That's what sin always does. If there is a separation that you feel that's growing, that means somehow, somewhere, there has been sin that has taken place, without any question. It's somewhere in there. And you got to know what that sin is and then be able to deal with that God's way. Questions or thoughts thus far here? Questions or thoughts thus far? Yes, Earl.
I think that this would not have happened if you just picked up your toy in the first place.
All right, now wait a minute. When you said that, Earl, you meant if the child picked up the toy in the first place. You're saying none of it would have happened if my wife would have picked up the toy?
Or you.
No, I didn't say her.
Oh, you didn't say her. That's what I was saying. If the child picked up the toy. Oh, if I picked up the toy. Well, I couldn't see. I was carrying something.
So it's your sight that's the
Wait a second. Are you trying to blame me for this? This is not my day. Jeez, this is tough.
well, you couldn't see because you were carrying.
That's right. I couldn't see. I was carrying something large into the house. I'm adding that in. If you can improvise, I can improvise too. I was carrying a large object, and I was carrying water softener salt into the house, and I could not see the toy truck, which, by the way, is now broken. All right, so.
But I think to Earl's point, sometimes I think it's possible that the guy could have been coming into the house, seen the truck, and intentionally didn't move it, because there might be some conflict left from maybe this morning
Oh,
or
yeah.
last night. and
Okay, so then you've been stewing all day. Actually, and we're actually gonna talk about that in, you're about 2 full pages ahead of me. Okay, so yes, Paulette, there could be some of those things. So if that's the case, then we've gotten to the sinful point of anger, where actually, if I did that intentionally, it'd actually be a form of vengeance. That I'm meaning to escalate this and show my anger and try to actually hurt than somebody else. If I'm doing it on purpose, now we have a totally separate ballgame. But we're not doing that quite yet here. Yeah.
Well, obviously, kids leave the toys lay around all the time, so he should have looked before he walked in the door.
We're still on this, man. We are reading a lot into this skit
You are a
here.
problem.
Yeah, I know. Man, this is tough. Now, let's take a look at the letter A, communication according to Scripture. If the oh, I'm sorry, Gail. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Rachel's last response should have been, let me help you pack your bags.
Wow, didn't hear Gail. This skit has gone awry. Gail just said Rachel's last response should have been, "Let me help you pack."
Well, she was being helpful.
She was being helpful. Oh. So Dan leaves, and here we go. All right. Letter A, communication according to Scripture. If the following words from God were followed, how would the conversation have gone? What would be different? All right, so let's take a look at the first verse here. James 1:19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away truth, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And then 1 Peter 3:15, talking about witnessing, but I would also suggest it talks about communication as a whole. In your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with what and what? Gentleness and respect. Okay, so if you pick a Bible verse, someone tell me what you took out of those, whatever Bible verse you picked. What did you take out of that in regard to communication? What is God actually speaking about communication here? Angela?
Like, take a second before you start the communication. Like,
Take
thinking
a
about it.
second, think, take a deep breath maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, you got that one here. What else? When you take a look at this Bible verse, Dan.
Well, don't you think the devil's just sitting on the doorstep
Oh, of course he is.
in this situation, waiting for this to happen?
Oh, the devil loves these sorts of things. Already at a weak point. Yeah. What are you taking from these verses? What wisdom or communication are you taking from these Bible verses? What do you see?
You need to listen.
Oh, wait a minute. Everyone should be slow to speak, but quick to do what? Why? Why should we be slow to speak, but quick to listen? Why?
Because then you think about what you're saying. Sometimes it just comes out and you didn't mean it that way, but that's the way it came out.
Yep. All right, so first off, it gives you a chance to get control of yourself, because this is the problem with words. Once the words are out, can you suck them back into your mouth?
I used the example of toothpaste. And I
Oh, you can't put the toothpaste back in the...
Yeah, but then I gave both, it was at a bridal shower, and I gave both the bride and groom to be. And then I said, now I want you to put this back
into the tube. And then I said, that's the way it is with your words.
You do that at like marriages? You give them toothpaste and you give them the toothpaste sermon?
This was an informal shower.
Oh, an informal shower. Wow. That's bold. I like that. Why else? I like this. This is good. Why else should we be quick to listen and slow to speak? What else is done there? Yes,
Are you
Angela?
thinking about the other person's point of view?
When you listen, you're thinking about the other person. Now, wait a minute, because you're going to actually listen to where they're coming from. Where they're coming from. What's going on. Now, when we listen and do that, if we're listening to the other person, that demonstrates what? What is this thing I want to put over this whole Bible study? Was it? Love. Does speaking necessarily communicate that you care? Does speaking necessarily communicate that? It does not. But if you're listening, listening is always about taking in what the other person is saying. It's about the other, and listening then is going to have the characteristic of love. Yeah, Lucy.
I think so often when we're listening, or supposedly listening, we're preparing, so we're really not listening.
Well, that's not godly listening. If listening is, I'm going to listen to prepare my attack, well, that's sinful. That's not the proper what we're talking about here. So if listening is, I'm going to wait for you to say something you shouldn't so I can use it against you later, well, that's, then we're in the...
But real listening isn't even thinking about what you're gonna say, it's listening to what the words are coming out of that person's mouth.
In order to do what? I'm going to listen to the other person in order to
Understand and hear what they're saying.
understand, to empathize, see where they're coming from. Man, it was a rough day at work. Pastor Lorenz was out of control. A renegade. All right, that's a lie. That's not who he is. I just wanted. And besides, these salt bags are really heavy. You have this here. What about this? A gentle answer turns away truth, or turns away wrath. A harsh word stirs up anger. Does it matter how you speak? It does. How you speak. How is your day? Versus, how's your day today? Is there a difference in how you speak? Yeah.
I heard a phrase when I was young, much younger than I am now, and
Aren't you young now?
It was kill them with kindness. So if somebody speaks harshly to you, to stop and to be polite back, because it's going to stop that. It's going to kill that interact that.
It certainly can. It certainly can. You notice here, and there also has to be something I talked about a couple weeks ago, where I talked about successful marriages and relationship, that you actually need this thing called, it sounds crazy, respect. How you speak to somebody shows respect, or it shows a lack of respect. Whether you listen or not shows respect or a lack of respect. These things make a difference. So let's fill in the blank under letter B. According to these following verses, the following actions can be taken to end escalation. So with the wisdom of Scripture, what is it? Blank your tone. Not silence your tone. Soften. Soften your tone. Just soften the way you say things. I had a couple once that a gentleman was in the military, and was married, and sometimes he brought his military style of communication to his house. How did that go? But that's how you get stuff done. is by talking this way. But does that communicate love, kindness, respect for your spouse? So we actually had to work on leaving the military communication, if you will, at work. We actually had to work on that. Because if you talk like that in a normal scenario, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. All right. Then also at the bottom of the page, blank and blank your spouse's point of view. Listen and acknowledge your spouse. So in other words, it's not just listening, but this actually then, it helps if you communicate out loud that you understand where your spouse is at. You actually have to, so, do you want people that you love to understand where you're coming from? Do you want that? Yes. How do you know they actually understand? How do you know that?
Their response.
By their response. In other words, that's the acknowledgement. You actually have to then, okay, and if I can hear from whoever I'm speaking to their point, like that they understood me, that's when I actually feel a calmness in my heart. It's when I know the other person actually understands, because they've communicated that. Otherwise, in some ways, I'm just kind of hoping they understand, and I'm still not at peace. You see the acknowledgement? You have to acknowledge. Okay, that. All right, and then finally this one, top of the next page. Give up the need to win. You are on the same team. So, if I won the argument, why am I living in the garage? But I won the argument. And why I'm living in the garage? That doesn't seem right. Well, because if you're on the same team, can there be one winner?
No.
There can't be. It's either you win together or you lose together. There's, and that somewhere has to be in there. That I'm arguing with my spouse, or again, it can be any other important relationship. It could be a friend. But if one of you wins the argument, in reality, you both lose. You're both losers. All right. So going this direction, I have ensured mutual destruction. And you just said it. How do you feel when these kinds of conversations are over? Can we rightly call, escalation, can we rightly call it sin? We actually sin against one another in the way that we speak to one another. Okay? This makes a big difference. All right, now, I'm going to ask Tiffany to come back. All right, because now we have the redo. All right. We're going to redo the conversation, and you tell me how the conversation is different, besides the fact I will end up with dinner. All right. So I come home. I've tripped over the toy. I've sprained my ankle, and here's where I'm at. Tiffany, can't you ever get the kids to put away the toys?
Like I have nothing else to do. And like you always clean up after yourself.
I guess you're pretty tired after a day with all 3 kids.
I am. But I guess you don't like falling over things when you've had a long day too.
That's right. I do wish that didn't happen.
I'm sorry if you got hurt. Let's get the kids to clean up right after dinner.
Oh. Which is the key. Team up against the children. After dinner. Yeah. You notice dinner did take place. Yeah. All right. Now, how do you think they felt after this conversation? How do you think people were feeling after this conversation?
Well, they compromised.
Relieved, little, like I would say, they sort of, yeah, calmed and spoke to one another. Well, how else do you think they felt after this conversation?
Validated.
Validated. Well, this is good because that's a great transition because we're gonna get to invalidation in just a second here. That respected, another way to put it. Respected, yeah.
And they got on the same team.
Oh, they're on the same team. That's right. That's what I was trying to get. Us against the kids. That's
The
good.
problem, that's, you know,
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay.
They got on the
All right. All right. What else? What else do you see here? Yeah.
What happened to dad, made the kids pick up the toys too, it's not having to the mom, but Dean got personal all the time.
Yeah.
Blaming the children.
Yeah. Yeah. Having the day. Yeah. Totally. Totally. When you take a look at this here, what were the specific things then that happened in the second conversation that helped? What are some specific things that took place in this conversation that actually helped?
Calm down. Respect.
Sorry, hold on, yep.
Lowered the tone.
Once again, did you see the softening of the tone? There was it's like you take a deep breath and you soften the tone. The way, the pause. Catch these things we talked about, to pause a second. That deep breath, like.
The words chosen were blaming.
They weren't blaming one another, okay? What else took place? There was something else that's key, yeah?
I don't know if this is what you're going for, but in the way that the conversation was written, it was the husband who kind of initiated the pause and
Yep.
started with a softer tone.
Yep.
And I think that kind of ties back into what we were talking about in earlier weeks with the husband demonstrating headship in the family, setting the tone for communication, knowing that his wife is tired, kind of being that protector, you know, de-escalating the situation for her sake.
Okay, that was so much better than anything I was looking for. Yeah, okay, yeah, that it was good that the husband, I think, initiated that. And like I said, we just came out of headship and so on and in talking about that. But the husband did something here. And actually, if you take a look at Tiffany, what's that? Empathy, that acknowledging of her feelings. He like paused for a moment and actually thought about the other person, which is expressing what? Love.
Draw that,
Yeah, what's that?
draw that.
Yeah. Draw, we're gonna draw it.
It's getting better.
A circle, another circle.
Yeah, listen, I'm never gonna draw anything in the air ever again in the history of my life. The only thing I'm gonna do is crosses. That's the only thing I'm capable of doing. After that, I've got nothing. Okay. Now, so here's the point. If you take a look at that bullet point, I said, how do you think they felt? And I said, when you follow God's will, it is simply a blessing. And it's a blessing, and they come out stronger and better. It's that simple. When you do things and live life and communicate God's way, it's a blessing. Almost like God's wise or something. All right, let's go to the second form of negative communication, invalidation. A simple definition of invalidation is to show somebody what? Disrespect, thereby harming their worth. All right, so then we have, this is good. We have Ronnie and Enrique for this one. All right, and I have some volunteers. Were you guys doing Ronnie and Enrique? All right, so Celicia and Justin were willing to do Ronnie and Enrique. And then on deck we have Ruby and Norm. So we'll see if we get that far today here. All right, so we have welcome Ronnie and Enrique here. I'll give you the microphone. All yours. All right.
Enrique, you missed your doctor's appointment again. You can't do anything right. You're gonna die young, just like your father, and I'm gonna be left all alone.
I'm not like my father. I take care of myself.
Oh, right. Blowing off your doctor's appointment's really taking care of yourself. You're so stupid.
And you're so smart, right? You think you know everything while you're the one who's stupid.
You get no dinner.
I'm enjoying this so much when it's not me. All right, okay. Now, where and how does invalidation take place in this? I'm going to put conversation. All right, from the very beginning, when you start by shouting, it's not just escalation, but what are you doing? You're showing the person a complete lack of, it's a complete lack of respect. It's a complete lack of respect. And then, you know, you can't do anything right. So now we're not just showing just, what do we call this? When you say something mean to somebody, it's called an insult. You're insulting them. All right. How does Enrique feel after the first insult? Hurt. And what does he try to do after the first? What is he trying to do there? Prove his point, defend himself. He's in a defensive mode here. All right, and then there's another form of invalidation here. How did Ronnie speak in her second response? What's in parentheses there? Sarcasm. Sarcasm, when it's used toward somebody, it is almost always harmful. It's derisive. You got to be very careful with sarcasm when you're communicating within a relationship. Okay. Oh, that's right. You're right. Again. Now, of course, did I mean those words? No, I was speaking how? Sarcastically. Why did this conversation, why did the invalidation start? Why did it start? This one's a little more confusing. Why did it start?
She wasn't respecting that he was taking care of things he was supposed to take care of.
Yeah, she wasn't yeah.
She was frustrated.
Frustrated already. Fear, maybe. Get all sorts of things here. What happened after one person started invalidating the other? What happened? Retaliation of the same kind. Do you think I'm stupid? No, you're stupid. Yeah, very creative. I mean, they're not the most creative, you know. All right. Gail, did you just have another good comment?
I just said, you're stupid.
You're stupider. You're stupider. Oh, I love Bible study. All right. And I put, have you ever been part of conversations like these, and how do you feel when they were done, and what was the aftermath? You ever been part of conversations like these, and how do you feel? Once again. Now, before I go to the Bible verses here, I want to do one more example. Because I will tell you, sometimes there's overt name calling, but very often it's more subtle. So, Ruby, Norm, do you want to come up here and do one for us? Flip the page over and take a look at Christy and Wayne, and then I'm going to back up to look at the Bible verses here. All right? So if you do Christy and Wayne, and Christy, you did not get your promotion, all right, at work. So I'm going to have you take the mic and pass it back and forth here. Norm, can you hold on to that? All right, so you did not get your promotion at work. Go ahead. Christy and Wayne on the next page.
I didn't get the promotion today. My boss said he gave it to Sue Ellen because she has more experience.
Hey, that's not so bad. You still have your job, right?
Yeah, but I really wanted that promotion. Can't you see I'm upset?
I see it. But you shouldn't be, it's really not a big deal.
All right. Now, remember, this is under the category of invalidation. Now, I'm gonna look at the questions, and I'm gonna back up to the Bible verses here. Now, somebody tell me in this conversation, did Wayne say, did he say out loud, Christy, you're overreacting, you're being silly about this, grow up? Did he say that out loud? No, he didn't. But did he invalidate her?
Yep.
Okay, so what did Wayne do? And let me ask you this question. What do you think Wayne was trying to do?
Make her feel better.
A source of like positivity.
He's trying to be a source of positivity. What do you call it? Try to find the what? The silver lining. Is he trying to help? I want to give Wayne the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to go on a limb and say Wayne is all right. He's trying to help. Did Wayne help?
No.
No. Okay. What did Wayne, now not his actual words, but what did Wayne actually say to her? Not as the words written here. What did he actually communicate to her?
Your desires don't matter.
Let's take it a step further. Your desires don't matter.
So crazy.
Your feelings are crazy. In fact, even the things you're feeling are basically not valid. They're wrong. They're wrong. The way you are feeling is wrong. The way you are reacting is wrong. Now, did he say that?
No.
But is that what he communicated?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's totally lacking empathy.
Yeah, he's missing the empathy. Now, if you could be Wayne's friend, what would you tell him? If you could be Wayne's friend here and you witness this, what would you say to Wayne if you're Wayne's friend? Yeah.
Do you really not care? Seriously?
Okay, so first off, and if you said, do you really not care seriously, Wayne would probably respond by saying, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Of course I care. He would respond by saying, I want my wife to be happy, and I'm just trying to help her be happy. Like, I don't think Wayne is trying to be a jerk. I don't think he's trying to be a jerk. What else would you say to him if you're his friend? What would you want to say? Yeah, okay?
All you need to do is listen. I don't expect you to fix it for me.
Oh. Okay, I don't expect you to fix it. I would like you to do what?
Listen up.
Acknowledge my feelings and allow me to express them.
Allow me to express them, and that's okay? Dan?
Basically, it's the same thing I was gonna say, is asking why do you feel that way?
Yeah, you could talk about, what's going on. If you don't understand how someone is feeling, is it okay just to ask? Yeah, that has to be okay to ask. And by the way, the response to that can't be, well, you should just understand how I feel. No. Okay, so I'm going to pick on ladies here for a second on that one. No. Just no. Seriously, ladies, no. We're wired differently. And remember, we talked about these things are a blessing. So is it a blessing that men sometimes have it in them that they want to fix a problem? That actually sometimes there's problems that need to be fixed. Do your wife's emotions need to be fixed? No. That's not necessarily Okay, now this can go both ways, all right? This can go both ways in this, meaning sometimes these communications, there's role reversals and all sorts of stuff like that, and I totally understand that. And so, you know, this is one of my Rachel license stories that I have here, is I actually remember where I was and what was going on when I learned this. This would have been like, and not that I'm perfect with this, even to this day, okay? But it was like 5-6 years into marriage, because we were living in our second house, and it was in the kitchen, between the refrigerator and the counter. And you came home, and you had like an awful day. You know, one of the doctors was being like rude. And so when, like, if there's like a doctor that's being mean, like, I go from like listening to seek and destroy mode. Like, I wanna go, and here's what you're gonna say to the doctor next time. And if you're not gonna, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna take care of the problem. No one talks to my wife that way. You know, I'm you know, like this here, and I'm gonna solve this thing, and I actually stopped and I said, is this a time where you want me to be quiet and listen and just hold you? And you're like, yes. And I'm like, and I'm like, I got it. I was like, I honestly had like an epiphany. I'm like, I did. I seriously, it was like, and you know, and it took a while, but it was like, you know, listen. And then here's the great part for guys. Just don't do anything. You know, we do. You have to listen. You have to care. You know what I mean? But in essence, trying to fix the situation is actually what? Harmful. Okay, and talk. And I asked the question. You know, I wanted to make sure I was actually reading the situation correctly. Because, and that happened because we had previous conversations that then finally sunk in, you know, finally sunk in, and it was like, oh, okay. Now, ladies, is it wrong that guys are wired very often differently? It's not. It's not. That's not wrong. It's actually good, okay? That's actually a good thing. And not that invalidation is a good thing, but the fact that we're wired differently is actually good, okay? And if a guy has a wherewithal to actually ask, good, okay? And then speak. Do you speak in a way that is invalidating back if the guy asks? No. Speak kindly. Don't escalate. He's actually trying to understand where I'm coming from. That's actually called love. That's called love. It's a good thing. Questions or thoughts before I go back to the Bible verses here? Questions or thoughts here? Because I would suggest very often invalidation is much more subtle than it is full-blown insulting. Sometimes it can be full-blown insulting, but a lot of times it's subtle. Questions, thoughts, questions? The subtle form of invalidation. All right, so let's go to the Bible verses here. Let's start back at the bottom of the previous page here. Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for what?
Building others up.
Building others up according to their needs. Whereas invalidating is tearing a person down in just that either overt or subtle disrespecting, God commands us instead to find ways to build people up. And this is in such short supply in all across, to pay somebody a compliment, to give them a word of encouragement, a word of thanks, could be a great job with dinner. It could be anything, you know what I mean? And it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. You know, all these things that have to be communicated, like, there are honestly, you know, I told my wife I loved her once. Why?